I love the smell of prog in the morning, and especially in this case when the prog is sprinkled with some jazz.
Hi, I'm John Javik from Marina. And you're watching Live Prog.
Hey everyone, welcome to Live Prog. I am Marcel Haster, and it's time to go back to 2019 and talk about this album, Chronosthesia, the debut album by Time Shift Accident. Now you may wonder, why are we going back 5 years to an album that's been out for so long? Because I can, of course, that's one reason. Because good music has no expiration date. And number three, this album was released by Generation Prog Records. And why is that a reason, you may think? Well, as you know, I'm recently back in the prog world. I'm reconnecting with a lot of people, and one of the labels I used to have a very good connection with was Generation Prog Records. So I got in touch with them again and catching up a little bit. And one of the things that he said was like, man, you missed out a lot of good music. And he said, are you interested? And I said, I'm always interested in new music. I'm like an addict, you know, this is a shot to me. Whenever, you know, I'm offered new music, I cannot say no. And especially if it's music that I don't really know, I'm curious too, because I know who is involved in it. That makes it very hard to say no. So I figured, you know, it's new to me. And maybe it's new to you too, because maybe there are people who missed out on the release of this album. And then again, maybe there are people who see this video who already have this album for 5 years. If you have this album, let me know in the comments. I'm curious, what is your favorite track on it? Let me know. I think I know which favorite track is, because it's gonna be pretty obvious with this one. At the same time, I was a bit concerned by, you know, doing a video on this album, listening to this album, because it is a prog-fusion album. It's a progressive album with jazz on it. And first of all, and it's an instrumental album. That's a very important thing. And well, I'm not a big fan of instrumental music, actually. That may surprise you, but I don't have a lot of instrumental albums, but often when I listen to that instrumental music, I start to miss the vocals. I really do. And I kind of get bored, and that's why these albums I don't play very often, because after a couple of times playing, it's like, all right, I need vocals. So I put them away, and then often they never come out again. The other concern I had is I'm not a really big jazz fan, and I'm not a really big fusion fan. So again, a concern like, am I going to like this album? I can give you the answer to that already. Yes, I enjoyed this album very much. I was surprised that I really liked it very much from the first song on. I was like, okay, these guys created a really good song here. The whole album has kind of an upbuilding, very positive atmosphere on it. That is something I very much like. Plus again, despite the fact that there are no vocals, I have listened to this album multiple times, and I didn't get bored. I didn't get the feeling like, okay, I'm done, I need vocals. So maybe I'm warming up to them, I don't know. But the interesting part is that this band is kind of related to Relocator, which is also an instrumental prog-fusion band, which had an album out in 2010. I reviewed that one. There might even be a video of that review here on Live Prog. If there is, there will be a link in the description and on screen. That band Relocator never released a second album. And well, as I said, you know, that's been 14 years ago. This one has been out for 5 years ago, and this is still the only album by Time Shift Accident. I'm kind of sad, because this is a really good album, and I would really like to see another album coming. So I really hope that we can see some new music of these guys somewhere soon, because that would be really great, because this is actually a really good album. Like I said, the first track grabbed me, which is interesting. The first track was co-written by the original keyboard player of the band, Sebastian Halbach, and he agreed that this song would be on the album. What I noticed, and that was the very first thing I heard when I put this album on, was this little keyboard intro, and I was like, wait a second, that reminds me of something. And it reminds me of the beginning of Endless Dream on the Talk album by Yes. It's only like 10-15 seconds, and then, you know, the band comes in and the song starts. And initially it's like, okay, when it started out, it's like a little bit of a well, how would you say that, standard prog-fusion song. But along the way, I started to notice how it changed, how the melody changed, and well, the beauty it brought. So that was really cool. I'm not going to go through all the tracks. There are a couple of tracks that stood out for me that I noticed. Track number 3, Ignalia Forest. That was also an interesting track because that is less progressive. That is more of a jazz song. And yeah, despite the fact that I'm not a really big jazz fan, the only jazz album I have in my collection is Kinda Blue from Miles Davis, because, you know, everybody said that is kind of a must-have album, and I gotta say, I do like that album, although I don't play it that much. But yeah, Ignatius Forest is the way, when I listen to the album, the one song that is more jazz than it is progressive rock. But still, it is a great song, and especially because of the keys. The keys make it often this jazzy sound in it, and that's what I like. The standout track, and that's gonna probably, for everyone who has this album, probably gonna be the favorite track, is Damascus Dance. That's the longest track on the album. It's 11 minutes and 20 seconds. That brings so much, all kinds of different influences. I even picked up a little bit of a hint of some vintage Genesis in it, some Middle Eastern influence in it. That is really great. I love that very much. This is a very progressive track. And here, the progressive and the jazz elements are really well mixed. And what I like about it, and that goes for that song, but that goes for the entire album, is that the album is recorded and mixed so well that you can really hear all the individual instruments, but also all the individual sections that play. And especially often the bass sound is kind of generic in the entire sound of an album. So often it's like, hey man, I don't consciously really hear a bass player, but I know there is a bass in it. In this case, of course, you know, one of the key members of this band is the bass player, so you can imagine he made sure that his parts are heard in the album. The rhythm section is really good, the guitars are good. The keys, they range from these really jazzy piano sounds, they got some Hammond in it, and they got some really progressive synth sounds, the more modern sounds that I definitely like very much. You know, there are a lot of great tracks on it, but when you have that big track, Damascus Dance, and when that's finished, you go over to the next track number 6, Pompeii, and that's more like in your face. It's more heavier guitars in it, more progressive song in it. I was like, there's a really big difference between these two tracks, but you know, it's very interesting how they do it, and they get away with it because it's really great. The album ends with another long track, 10 minutes 35 seconds, The Hand of God. That starts out with some really modern synths, then move into the rhythm section, which I love that you hear the rhythm section coming up. Then you got some heavy guitars, and then it moves into that fusion sound. And again, that is a really great track, a really closing track to the album. Now, about the band in a second. First of all, Chronosthesia and Time Shift Accident, I think they're both great names, but there is an idea behind this thing, because it says here in the booklet, you have to take out the CD for that. It says here, in psychology, mental time travel, also called chronesthesia, so there we have the explanation for the title, is the capacity to mentally reconstruct personal events from the past, episodic memory, as well as to imagine possible scenarios in the future, episodic foresight or episodic future thinking. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And well, it's interesting when you don't have any vocals in it, when you don't have words to a song, that you still can have a concept behind an album. That's just really good. I was going to take out the booklet, of course, because we need to talk, of course, about the band. Normally I start out with telling who made this album, and later on about the music. I decided, you know, we're going to switch it around this time. Now, there are no lyrics in it, so the booklet is not much, to be honest. It's only this, but you got at least the pictures of the members. We have Gunther Schmuck on keyboards, Michael Shatter on bass, Dave Mola on guitars, and Paul Ettel on drums. Now, it's interesting, we have 4 guys that all have a different background in music. Now, I gotta be honest, I didn't look into the drummer, so I don't know exactly what his background is, but Michael Shatter has a very progressive background, although progressive and also a bit of fusion. Gunther Schmuck has a real jazz background, so it's nice that these influences come together. Dave Mola, I know him from Effloresh. He has a more progressive metal background. And I gotta say, when I was listening to him, and of course I've seen him on stage, I know the band, it's a really great band, Effloresh, and I was really amazed by the way he plays. You know, his guitar play is awesome on this album, so I love that very much. So it's really great to see that you have these great talented musicians with different influences coming together and record a fantastic album. Now it may be 5 years old, almost 5 years old, but it's a great album. It was new to me, I really enjoyed listening to it. So if you are not familiar with Time Shift Accident and this album, I can highly recommend it. Check it out, especially if you are into prog-fusion. This is definitely a great album to listen to. So check it out and order a copy and listen to it. And like I said, if you have the album, if you have listened to it, let me know in the comments what you think of it. And of course, what is your favorite track? Is it the one I think, or do you have a different one? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. See you with another video.